Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for June 1st, 2026. We have two docket items tonight, and they're all variance requests. So we'll have roll call. You want roll call?
Sure. Okay. Brian Kirschbaum.
Here.
Bruce Polly.
Here.
Ron Edwards.
Here.
Lori Gross. Here. And Corey Kuntz is absent.
Absent, okay. Has everybody read the minutes for last meeting? And if there's nothing to discuss on them, I'd look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, the first item is, the first docket is 2026. It consists of, I believe it's 4 variances. It's Eli Lilly out on 32 West. Ben, do you want to take over?
Yeah, so this is Eli Lilly. This is actually their LP1, LP2 site up on the north side of the community, Witt Road and 375 North. You'll see highlighted here, our aerial photography is obviously a couple years old because there's a lot more going on there than what you see in our poor aerial photography. And so a lot is under construction out there. They're getting to the point where they're looking at some of the finishing items here to this site. Lighting we're working on, reviewing right now. And this one is actually related to signage for the property, specifically the monument signs at their 3 entrances, and then the internal directional signage associated with the site. As we all know, this is a very unique site in Lebanon. This is 600 acres, so it's a significant size site. So providing proper signage to get people into and around the site is critical here. And so as we were looking at our sign standards with the applicant who was designing the signs, looking at the monument sign requirements for along at the entrances and also our directional sign maximum square footage requirements, it looked like as they were looking at it was going to become challenging because of the complexity of the site and making sure trying to get people to and from buildings and around the site. Wanted to make sure that all of these signs were big enough so that people could see the text and where they're being sent around the site. And so what we have here then is a variance request to allow an increase in the maximum sign size for both the monument signs and for the on-site directional signs. So based on the speed limits on these adjacent roads, the maximum monument sign square footage is 45 square feet, and they're asking for just a little over 50 square feet on those monument signs. And then directional signs, our maximum allowable is 6 square feet, and they're asking for about 13.5 square feet on the square footage. So we'll go from here to then this is the proposed and under construction improvements on the site. And what you see highlighted in red are locations for directional signs. So their main entrance is here on Witt Road, adjacent to the visitor center. Then they have a truck entrance that is over here to the east on 375, and there's a monument sign there. And then they have a secondary entrance here on the north side on 450 North, and there will be a monument sign at those locations. Then all the rest of these are directional signs around the site to try to get you through the network of roads here and to the appropriate building. And so we'll see here, these are the monument signs as they're proposed. And a significant part of each one of these signs is not necessarily just the advertising for Lilly, but it is directional signage. As you're entering the site, this is the direction you need to go for the employee entrance or for the visitor center, et cetera. And you can see that because of how many buildings are on the site and getting the size appropriate to be able to see where you're going and see that text appropriately, they do need that additional square footage in order to be able to make sure that it's safe as your people are coming to the site and then getting through the site. So here's the series of the monument signs. Then here are the directional signs. So again, I said these are about 13.5 square feet, and you can kind of see the scale here with an average sized human in the shadow there. So again, to get the size that is necessary in order to be able to properly see the directions on the sign and get you to the building on the site, that 13.5 square feet is really important to make sure you can do that. And again, you see here a majority of that site is the directions. It's a little bit more complex and entrance and exit signs that you might see on a typical site with a single building. So because of the size of the site and the complexity of the site and getting to all those buildings, it really is important to have this additional square footage in order for people to get safely through the site. So lots of visitors, lots of employees, trucks, et cetera. Important to get all these people where they need to be on the site. So I'll quickly run through Any variance, there are 3 criteria, findings of fact that must be met in order to consider any variance requests. The first, the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. And staff has indicated that relief from these sign size requirements poses no threat to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. In fact, we think that increasing the size of the signs will actually be better for safety around the site. And the signs are located in places where it's not going to provide any issues in terms of visibility in and around the site, and actually is going to improve the logistics on the site as well. The second is that the use and value of the area adjacent will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Staff determined the use and value of the area will not be impacted while much of the area to the south of the subject site remains undeveloped. It is part of the LEAP district and is planned for similar types of headquarters and advanced manufacturing operations. And these sites will all have complementary buildings with similar signage needs as they move forward. Number 3, the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. Staff had determined that the strict application of the terms will result in practical difficulties. When you're looking at the size of the site, the complexity of the site, it's really important to get the appropriate sign sizes so that the logistics of the site will work and people will be able to see where they need to get to. Limiting the height and size of the signs will create an inefficient and potentially unsafe situation as people are trying to maneuver around the site. And one important thing that I did note in here is the LEAP district. This site is not in the LEAP district. It is just in our general industrial zoning classification. So it is limited to that square footage that they're asking for the variance from. If this was just directly south in the LEAP district, there is no limitation on directional signs. So all the LEAP district sites directly south and adjacent here would be able to have larger directional signs. And then actually the monument signs can be much larger in the LEAP district as well. So this will be very much consistent with the sites to the south, which will have some additional square footage that they're permitted in the LEAP district. So with that, then staff does recommend approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the monument and on-site traffic directional sign size requirements of the UDO. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, I don't think anybody's got any questions. Does Eli Lilly want to address the board with any other discussion?
No, sir. And board, no, thank you. We have nothing further to offer. We believe this is very straightforward.
Sounds good. Okay. This is a public meeting, so I will open for public discussion if anybody cares to step forward and speak. I'm opening the public hearing part of the meeting. Seeing that nobody will step forward, we will close the public hearing part of the meeting. Does the board have any questions for anybody? Okay, look for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the development standard variance request to permit relief from the monument and on-site traffic directional sign requirements.
Second.
Second, Kelly.
Brian Kirschbaum,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards. Yes. Lori Gross.
Yes.
Motion carried. Congratulations and good luck. Have one more item tonight. Docket 2634 is SK Sunrise LLC. Property is 434 North Mount Zion Road in Lebanon. Ben?
Mr. Pauly, let me pull up my screen here. All right, so the site 434 Mount Zion Road is the site of the existing subway that you see highlighted here, and I've got it zoomed so you can see a little bit of the site around it. So State Road 32 is here on the north, and the I-65 entrance and exit ramps are just at the edge of here. Flapjacks is just to the east or north and east of the property on the other side of Mount Zion Road, and then we've got a hotel just west of this. and then Garofalo Boulevard. So you can see the very unique shape of this property. The subway is probably about 500 feet off of State Road 32, but the property does extend all the way up to State Road 32 and is at the intersection of State Road 32 and Mount Zion Road. And that's important for consideration of the use for this site because the proposed use would be to add on to the existing subway and add 2 additional tenants to the building. One would be a coffee shop and the other would be a gas station. So we have revised our gas station standards back in 2024. We updated the UDO. And what we wanted is that we wanted gas stations to be clustered at the same intersections. And then those clusters at intersection would need to be at least a quarter of a mile apart. So for those that are familiar, we do have a gas station on the north side of State Road 32 that is directly north of this site. So we defined the intersection cluster, quote, as the intersection of State Road 32 and Mount Zion Road. And so because this lot does own all the way up to State Road 32, it is the lot that is at the intersection and creates the cluster with that existing gas station. So that is why that use is permitted, because that is one of the requirements we have. A couple other things. Gas stations must be at least 500 feet away from residential districts. We do not have residential districts out here, so that's not an issue. Again, as I mentioned, grouped at intersection nodes. They're limited to 8 fueling dispensers and or 8 charging stations. When you're on a corner lot, this is technically a corner lot, and this is one of the issues that's part of their request tonight. The canopies are prohibited between the primary building and the abutting street with the highest roadway classification. In this case, the abutting street with the highest roadway classification is State Road 32. It is a primary arterial. So this subway building, and I'll show you the building that's being proposed, the canopy could not be between that building and State Road 32. No matter how far it is off of 32, it can't be on that side of the building. And you'll see how it's challenging to put the canopy anywhere but in a location to be closer to State Road 32 in a moment. But that is one of the issues. Let's see if there's anything else. I think that probably hits the majority of the standards that were relevant here tonight. So here we'll go, and I'll show you. This is the existing site plan for the subway. As you can see, the primary entrance and exit is off of Mount Zion Road, but let me actually go back. One other important thing here, you can't turn left into Mount Zion Road coming off the interstate. You do have to come down to Garofalo, and you come south on Garofalo and back around and enter the site then on Mount Zion Road. So all traffic entering this site will be using Garofalo and around. They can't turn left here. So people can turn right on Mount Zion, come down, but anybody coming off the interstate, which would be probably a majority of the traffic, will be coming around on Garofalo. So here's the existing site. This is actually quite a bit more parking that's actually required for the subways. You look at our new standards, but there are auto parking on the north of the building and south of the building. And then they all do have some truck parking here at the very north part of the parking lot. The current way you access the drive-through is coming in the entrance, and you go around the north side, west side, and down, and then it's on the south side of the building. Everything comes and goes from this one entrance and exit. So there are 3 variances. As we were reviewing this and the many iterations of the site plan until we got something that we could work with here, there were 3 variances that was just really difficult to avoid with the way the site was laying out. And so while they were able to address many of our concerns, questions, and issues, there were 3 things that there was really no way to address on this site, and thus the reason why those variances are requested for here tonight. So the first one would be prohibited signs. This sign does have a pole sign that was permitted when it was constructed. We had pole sign standards in our old ordinance that allowed them within a certain distance of an interchange, which this is within a certain distance of an interchange, and was permitted by right on that old ordinance. Well, we do not allow pole signs anymore in the new ordinance. So this sign is considered a legally existing non-conforming sign. And it's allowed to stay in its current form as long as it is not modified, moved, etc. Well, we're adding on a little bit of pavement to the north side of this property, and the sign is now in a location where it can no longer be because we need this area to the north side of the canopy to provide proper access to the site. So the sign has to move about 30 feet to get it out of the way of the improvements. Because it's being moved, it loses its legally existing non-conforming status. So they do want to reuse that pole sign, and I'll show you what it looks like here in a moment. And so in order for them to be able to reuse the pole sign that they already have, it does require a variance to allow them to maintain that pole sign. I'll show you a little bit here in a moment why the pole sign is very beneficial. Our monument sign standards would limit them to 12 feet out here. And I'll show you why the 12 feet really is not going to be sufficient in this location for visibility from State Road 32. But this is the improvements that are proposed to the site. Again, as I mentioned, traffic primarily will be coming down Garofalo and then entering on the south end of the site. So you can see their entrance and exits have changed a little bit because of the additional uses. So this existing subway building is staying exactly as it is, but it's being added onto and it's turning into an L-shaped building to add the gas station and the coffee shop. The coffee shop does also have a drive-up window. So the logistics of the site are to enter the subway drive-through, you will come in the south end and you will use this loop drive to get to the order window and the pickup window for the subway. And then the Scooter Coffee then will have a drive-up window on the back side, the west side of the building here. And they do have a pass-by lane out here as well to make sure that in case there's some issue that people can still get around. So you got two separate drive-through to drive-up windows that we're attempting to accommodate here on this site. And that is also a reason why the second variance will come in. We actually had them close this existing entrance and exit to make sure that we're getting folks coming in one way and going out one way at the north end. Or obviously, if you're using the Scooter Coffee drive-up window, you'll be exiting the site here on the south side as well. One of the original site plans did maintain this one. We wanted to clean that up a little bit and make sure we only had limited ways in and out to make sure that we're keeping traffic going all in the same directions. So again, as I mentioned, the first request was to maintain the existing pole sign, and here is what the existing pole sign looks like. It is a 40-foot tall pole sign. The subway panel is 5 foot high by 20 foot wide, and the drive-through panel is 1.5 foot high by 8 foot wide. They will be using the exact same pole structure, same 40-foot tall structure, and that rectangle that you see there is actually the same cabinet that is the subway cabinet. So this new sign is still 5 foot high by 20 foot wide, same cabinet. It's just that they will have panels for subway and then a panel for the other two tenants that will be there on the site. So the actual structure of the sign is staying the same. Actually, the square footage is reducing because, as you can see, the drive-through panel is not there anymore. So this is actually the same height, same size panel. It just needs to move, and that's why it needs the variance to maintain that on the site. I will mention too, the sign itself is still probably a little over 200, almost 250 feet away from State Road 32. So if you go back here to the aerial photography, the sign right now sits just north of the parking lot right in here, and it's going to move up to just about right here. And so the reason why they wanted to request the variance for that pole sign height to allow that pole sign and keep that 40-foot height is, as you can see, the sign, even though it's moving further towards State Road 32, it's still a good 250 feet off the roadway, and it is still behind the buildings for both of the adjacent properties. So if you reduce that height down to the 12 feet that's permitted here, you lose the visibility from State Road 3002 altogether because it will be hidden by these buildings. So again, because of the kind of the weird shape, unique shape of this property, you really can't get it all the way out to State Road 32 for visibility purposes. So keeping it back here, that height will allow it to be visible over these buildings adjacent. So that was part of the reason for the variance and the justification for the variance. And so let me quickly then on the sign variance, let's talk about the findings of fact. Again, the first finding is that the approval will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff has determined that relief from the prohibited sign requirements will not be injurious to public health. While somewhat modified due to the additional tenants on the sign, the proposed pole sign is of similar height and size to the existing pole sign for the subway tenant. The sign location is slightly changing to accommodate the proposed site improvements, but the new location will have no negative visibility impacts on either State Road 32 or Mountain Zion Road. And as I mentioned, the location is still over 200 feet away from State Road 32, almost 250 feet away. The second, use and value of the area adjacent will not be affected. Staff determined the use and value will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The proposed pole sign is essentially the same as the existing pole sign, just in a slightly different location. Additionally, the sign is very similar sign type to signs on adjacent restaurant, hotel, and gas station properties. Again, the hotel to the west, Flapjacks to the east, and the gas station across the street all do have pole signs on their properties. In fact, Flapjacks sits just north of their building right here, so significantly closer to State Road 32, and actually the monument sign for the hotel is actually right out on State Road 32. So their signs are significantly closer to 32 than even the proposed new location here. Criteria number 3, strict application of terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. Staff determined that strict application will result in practical difficulties because the proposed building and gas station canopy are set back a notably further distance from State Road 32 than adjacent users. Visibility to the building becomes somewhat of a challenge and sufficient signage becomes critical. In addition to the beneficial building proximity to State Road 32 associated with adjacent users, these users also have existing pole signs. The variance approval to allow the applicant to maintain the pole sign on the property in a modified location will allow the site to have similar improvements to the neighboring properties. And so with that, then staff does recommend approval of the development standards variance, request to permit relief from the prohibited sign requirements. The second request is related to the canopy sign that you see located right here. So again, as I mentioned, on corner lots like this, the canopy cannot be located any closer to the street with the highest classification than the building. And so the building ends about right here. And so the canopy, in order to meet that requirement, would have to be south of an invisible line that runs right across here. And there really is no location to put it south of that portion of the building and still allow, vehicular accessibility around the canopy. So really the only location the canopy could be and allow the appropriate accessibility to the site is in the location where it is. It does meet all building setback requirements from Mount Zion Road as required by the UDO. It's just that it needs to be in that location and it does need the variance because of this location, because it is closer to State Road 32. Again, as you'll recall from how the site's located, that canopy is about 300 feet away from State Road 32. So while it is closer to 32 than the building, it is still significantly further away than either building on either side. And so it's really the reason we don't want canopies in front of the buildings is because we don't want there to be a visual impact of the canopy. We want the building to be more prominent. But in this case, because of the distance away, it really is not having any sort of visual impact on State Road 32 because it's tucked back behind buildings adjacent to it. So again, it's a variance to allow the gas station canopy location in front of the building on the State Road 32 side. Again, the 3 criteria. First, will not be injurious to public health. Let me make sure I got the right ones. Relief from the gas station canopy location requirement will not be injurious to public health. The canopy still meets all applicable building setback requirements, and it is a significant distance from State Road 32. And as you can see, it does have all the necessary drive aisle widths around the canopy to allow proper accessibility here. The second is use and value of the area adjacent will not be impacted in a substantially adverse manner. The staff determined that use and value of the area will not be impacted in an adverse manner. The proposed canopy location meets all applicable building setbacks and will additionally meet all height and design requirements. The canopy also is approximately 300 feet from State Road 32. Criteria number 3 is a strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. Staff did determine the strict application will result in practical difficulties because of the unique teardrop shape of the subject property, the location of the existing subway building, and the proposed expansion of the building. There essentially is only one location on the property where the gas station canopy can be located. In addition, while the canopy is technically in a location that is closer to State Road 32 than the primary building, it is still approximately 300 feet from the thoroughfare. This setback is larger distance than the buildings on the either adjacent property, and those buildings are about between 60 and 80 feet from State Road 32. So it's about 3 times, almost 4 times the distance from State Road 32 than the buildings on either side of it. And so with that, then planning staff did recommend approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the gas station canopy location. The third one then, because this site, because of its adjacency to State Road 32, is within the thoroughfare overlay district. And in the thoroughfare overlay district, buildings are required to have building base, landscaping, foundation plantings around 75% of the perimeter of the building. And in this case, if you'll recall, we do have 2 drive-up windows that need to be adjacent to the building. And so you can see here, there is significant foundation plantings on the building, on both, a little bit on the south side, and then of course the north and the east sides here, all have the building base or foundation plantings as required. It just, the math doesn't work to be able to get to 75%, because as you can see, we've got a drive-up lane that's here and a drive-up lane that's along the entire west side of the building. So the math doesn't quite work to get to the foundation 75% requirement. So while the primary visible sides of the building from Mount Zion Road all have the foundation plantings, they just can't get the math to work. What we worked on with them was to provide some alternative plantings to really make up for the fact that they can't meet those requirements. So you can see here that they've got a significant planting strip along the western property line that you see here, both trees and shrubs, again, to make up for the fact that you can't put foundation plantings on that side of the building. And again, in this location, because they couldn't get plantings up adjacent to the building, they did add additional plantings, tree and shrub plantings in this little island that's in the basically that loop drive for the drive-up window. So again, while they couldn't technically meet the requirement for the foundation plantings, they did provide alternatives plantings to try to make up for it and put them in locations that would provide the benefit on those sides of the buildings in a similar manner to what the foundation plantings would. And again, for this one's similar to the other two, we got the three findings of fact. I'll make sure I get to the right page here. Not sure how this printed. Looks like it duplicated a couple of things. Here we go. All right, so the first is that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Staff determined that relief from the foundation planting requirement will not be injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. Criterion number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Staff to determine that the use and value of the area adjacent will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The applicant has proposed foundation plantings on the most visible sides of the building or adjacent to Mount Zion Road and has added landscaping and alternative locations on the south side of the building and on the west side of the building to make up for limited foundation plantings on these sides due to the drive lanes. The improved landscape plan meets all other UDO requirements and will be complementary or better than landscaping provided on adjacent properties. Criteria number 3, the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties. And staff determined that the strict application of terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties because of the location of the drive lanes on both the west and south sides of the building is impossible to provide the required 75%. The applicant has provided additional landscape plantings and alternative locations along these sides of the buildings. And while the site does not technically meet the foundation planting requirement, it does have more than sufficient landscaping to meet the intent of the requirements. And with that, then staff did recommend approval of the development standards variance request to permit relief from the foundation planting requirement. And that was a lot, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Do you want to, that letter that came in today, you don't want to
Yes.
include that?
Thank you. Yeah, I do want, we did receive a letter from the adjacent property owner, the Flapjacks property owner. It came in earlier today. I did want to read it into the record. Okay, this comes from Georgios Lampro, it's a Greek name, but they are the owners of Flapjacks to the east. Dear Chairman Coots and members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, we are the owners operators of the neighboring business property adjacent to the east. We respectfully object to the development standards variances requested by SK Sunrise for the property located at 434 North Mountain Zion Road. After reviewing the application, we submit the following concerns on the gas station canopy location variance request. Placing the canopy near site access and fueling areas may reduce visibility for drivers entering and exiting, potentially creating congestion and sightline issues that increase traffic conflicts. From a practical perspective, this location could compromise safe circulation for customers and neighboring properties. Number 2, on the foundation plantings request, we are aware that many surrounding lots have less than 75% foundation plantings. However, further reducing the requirement would continue stripping green space from the corridor. The purpose of the standard is to preserve landscaping over the long term, not allow it to gradually disappear. And finally, on the pole sign relocation, the proposed pole sign relocation may increase prominence inconsistent with the Thoroughfare Overlay District standards intended to maintain attractive development patterns and reduce visual clutter along the roadway. And then some additional business and property owner considerations, traffic impacts and construction disruption. The proposed gas station and coffee shop will increase vehicle volume and require road closures in front of our business, which will directly affect our customers and property. If road closures are necessary, please schedule them after 2:00 in the afternoon, after business hours. The applicant should also be required to obtain all appropriate permits for any road closures or construction activity. And the city should be required to provide proper notice to all neighboring properties for any road closures or construction activities. I think that kind of hits the highlights there. So maybe just to quickly, again, I closed this down, but let me pull it back up. Their concern may be about creating congestion, sightline issues, and maybe I just wanted to point out really quickly, back on our site plan, we talked about it, but I wanted to reiterate it a little bit. So in terms of how the site will work from a traffic perspective, again, as I mentioned, you can't turn left on Mount Zion Road if you're coming off the interstate. So they'll go down to Garofalo, they'll come around, and they'll be using this entrance here. So it's not going to you're not going to have significant entrance and exit congestion here, which is closest to Flapjacks. Cars will primarily be entering from the south, using the fueling stations that are here, and then exiting this direction and out on the State Road 32. So I don't see that there will be congestion issues at this location because the majority of the traffic is actually coming from Garofalo through the site and out, which is exactly how we worked on the site design to make sure that that's how it would work. You obviously will have some people that might be turning, if they're coming eastbound on 32 and turning down Mount Zion Road, but I think that that's much less than 50% of the traffic. And so again, I don't think you're going to be causing congestion issues here. And we do have significant space around the canopy to make sure that cars can get around and not get congestion in this area. So I think that would address some of those concerns. On the foundation plantings, we already talked about it. Again, while they're not technically meeting the 75% requirement, they do have foundation plantings around all of the mostly visible sides of the building, and then did also provide extra landscaping on the west and south sides to make up for those areas where they didn't have them. So again, I think I understand the concern about approving variances, but they did provide alternative landscaping really to be able to address the intent there. And then in terms of the prominence of the pole sign, as I mentioned, the sign's still about 250 feet away from State Road 32. So I'm not sure that it's really going to be any more prominent, and probably it's still less prominent than all the signs on the adjacent properties. So I think that would really address their three specific concerns to an extent. So again, be happy to answer any additional questions if there are any.
Time. Does the applicant care to step forward?
Good evening. My name is Joe Seacos. I'm a planner with Clark Quinn Law, offices at 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100. Here with me this evening is Nick Janney, the project owner. Out of respect for the board's time and the excellent job staff has done with the presentation, I will not go through with my presentation at the risk of repeating information. Just as a reminder, we are requesting 3 variances from the development standards, being the sign, the fueling canopy, and the foundation plantings. As demonstrated by staff, you can tell our team has been diligently working with city staff to make this a quality project for the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I think we have any at the present time.
Thank you.
Public meeting. I will open the public meeting for anybody who cares to address the public hearing. Seeing no address public hearing, I'll close the public hearing. Questions for anybody? We'd look for
I make a motion to approve the development standard variance request to permit relief from prohibited sign requirements, canopy, gas station canopy location, and foundation planting.
I'll second.
have a motion and a second.
Brian Kirschbaum,
Yes.
Bruce Polly,
Yes.
Ron Edwards, Lori Gross.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Is there any other business to discuss tonight? Okay, seeing there's no other business to discuss, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
All motion we adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Next meeting will be Monday, July the 6th. Meeting is adjourned.